Unit on the way. That is a tactic that is employed for just this sort of get the suspect if they need to. But that sometimes it's just the threat of the dog can be used to convince someone to give up when they otherwise wouldn't. A lot of people are really afraid of big dogs, and especially if it's a police dog, there's plenty of reason to be afraid. The bites are pretty vicious. But we do not see one yet having been brought to bear here because...
There is one down there.
Oh, there is one down there. Where? Okay, let's see.
Yeah, there is one down there already on the scene. He's ready to go. I think he was near that lead unit, but he may be now a couple cars back. I'm not sure. Do you still see him, Rob? Is he behind there? Okay, he might be with this group of officers there. In any event, hard to say, Mark, how this is going to play out. And I say that partially because the tactics have been pretty unorthodox all evening long. We saw so many things that we're just not accustomed to seeing, but you see that with a lot of these smaller departments. They don't follow the same tactics that we often see with LAPD or the Sheriff's Department or California Highway Patrol. It's different department by department, and certainly we have seen some unusual tactics, to say the least, including a number of pit maneuvers at a fairly high rate of speed in areas where there could have easily been, some collateral damage. In any event, fortunately, nobody else hurt here at the end of this pursuit, as far as we could tell. And it does become a waiting game now, whether they call for a SWAT team at some point or they decide to handle this a different way. I don't even see, you normally will look for the less lethal weaponry if they wanted to fire a beanbag through the rear window or something like that, but that's usually indicated by the neon colored long rifles. So I don't see those. It looks like they've got this guy at gunpoint. It's just a matter of time, though, before he comes out, or they have to extract him.
Right, and the question, they're probably figuring that out now. How would they do that? Will a bunch of officers kind of move up and pull him out of there, or do they think that he might have a weapon? In which case they may want to wait until SWAT gets there to deal with it, or perhaps employ different tactics. If you live in this area, this is Broadmoor Avenue and Workman Avenue in the West Covina area. Just stay in your homes. Your best view of it is from us right here on Air 7 HD from overhead. The good news is if he tries to make a run for it, they're right there, and they're not going to be able to. He won't get far. But stay in your home. Keep your doors and windows locked just in case. But this is a pursuit that kind of began and ended in the same general area. Pursuit of a domestic violence and rape suspect.
Yeah, at this point, you've got to wonder, and I mean, some of it is already clearly evident in terms of the mental state behind the wheel there. He is a very agitated individual, obviously a violent past here, and he is, he's had every opportunity to think twice and come out peacefully or bring this pursuit to an end earlier on. But he just refused. He just refused to pull over at multiple points in this pursuit and was determined to get away. But the way they committed themselves to this pursuit, you just knew it wasn't something they were going to let go. It was not a situation where they could cancel the pursuit or hand it off, or chose to hand it off to anybody else. It was West Covina PD the entire way, all through South LA, all the way back here where it all began. They have kept this all to themselves. They want this guy, and he doesn't want to be had. So it's a volatile end here, and just a waiting game to see how exactly they take him into custody. But you can see them now surrounding the vehicle, another unit pulling up to the passenger side to get a glimpse of that side of the vehicle, making sure he doesn't crawl out and start running in the other direction. And they have the K9 unit already on scene there, at least one that we see ready to pounce if it does become a foot chase.
And you see those two officers getting out of that vehicle, training their lights on the inside of the suspect's car. This is a Scion, I believe, right?
Yep.
Okay, it's a
hard
Scion.
to tell if it looks like a slightly older model Scion. A capable vehicle enough, at least enough to make it through this pursuit, but its days are over.
Yeah. And he was flooring it for a while. That has stopped now. It caused a lot of smoke, and I'm guessing it smoked up the inside of that car pretty well, and he decided maybe that's not the best thing to do, so that's not happening anymore. But he's not getting out. And you can bet they have
and that
been...
smoke that was coming from the hood has dissipated dramatically as well. So fortunately, no sign of fire at this point. Just really a waiting game to see if he maybe thinks twice about this and comes out peacefully, or if they have to somehow shatter one of those rear windows to get a better view or better access to the vehicle. I mean, the other thing is obviously bringing in more tactical team, like a SWAT team, which would likely come from, I think, well, West Covina, I think, has their own, and then they always have LA County Sheriff at their disposal to help out if they need it. But right now, just about a dozen officers on the scene down there, and probably talking about the very same thing in terms of coming up with a plan A and a plan B, depending on how this goes.
Right. Well, the dog is there, as you pointed out. A number of officers are there, a number of units. And again, you don't see anybody at this point from other agencies that have showed up. Is this all West Covina here so far?
This is all West Covina, and you get the feeling just from what we've witnessed here tonight. I think they would like it that way. They have chosen to keep it that way. LA County Sheriff does have a helicopter overhead helping out in any way they can. It does look like another canine unit has now pulled into position there on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and a lot more backup at the end of the street. In fact, if you tilt down, you can see a lot more units now shutting down the street, a lot of spectators and neighbors coming out to catch a glimpse of the action. As you mentioned, not advisable, not much to see from down there anyways, but lots of units now on scene to bring this to an end. It will be it's always a challenge. I mean, this could be a very long standoff. In some cases, it goes on for hours. In other cases, they have other ways of dealing with it, or the suspect will choose to come out on his own. It's really, at this point, I mean, the vehicle's trapped. There's really nowhere for him to drive. He could run for it, and it could become a foot pursuit. But other than that, the options are limited here.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a very long foot pursuit because you can't outrun a Belgian Malinois. That's the kind of dog that they typically use for police work. So, yeah, he's not going to get very far, and it's just, but, I guess for his mindset, as long as he's sitting in the car, he's not in handcuffs, and that's enough at this point, given that he knows he's going to jail and perhaps on to prison based on the charges that he is alleged to, of the crimes that he is alleged to have committed. Rape and domestic violence are the allegations that have been raised against him thus far. You can add to that, of course, the things that he conducted during the pursuit, and that adds more charges to the list. But he's looking at his freedom being taken away for some length of time, and maybe this is enough to just sit in the car at this point and just wait, because at least he's free.
That is something that we see so often, right, Mark, where they just kind of enjoy their final minutes of freedom, maybe light up a cigarette or just kind of take it in. Looks like maybe some tear gas fired in his direction. I'm not sure. I see some more smoke coming from the vehicle. Looks like they have shot something in his direction. But what will inevitably happen, despite all of the movement coming from the driver's seat a few minutes ago, as time goes on, his adrenaline is going to start to come down as well. And that may help him think a little bit more clearly, especially if they are indeed opting for the tear gas option, which is never a pleasant one. There's certainly a possibility. Those look like they may very well be pepper ball guns or tear gas. Not sure exactly which, but that looks to be what was possibly fired in his direction there. We'll see if we see any more any more activity, but does look like it came from that unit there on the passenger side.
Yeah, we're watching that weapon that officer brought out. We saw him get something from the trunk of the vehicle, which we presume might be another round that he's going to perhaps fire in the direction or at the vehicle. Try to get some tear gas or pepper gas in there. But that might be one way to do it, smoke him out, as opposed to sending the dog in or sending people up there. They must have a pretty strong belief that he poses a real threat, because they are in kind of this standoff position, and nobody has gone in to kind of take any sort of aggressive moves to remove him. And the video on the right is from a few minutes ago, right after he got wedged in behind that car that he ran into and then was wedged in by the police officers' units. He just floored it. He stepped on the gas and kept stepping on the gas for several minutes, during which time the right front tire, which was gone, the rim was just scraping on the ground and emitting all those sparks and a lot of smoke. And that went on for several minutes until he perhaps thought better of it, or maybe the car is incapable of doing it anymore. And so that eventually stopped. And so now what we're left with is a suspect, again, a rape suspect and domestic violence suspect, who is now holed up in that car, refusing to get out after a pursuit that lasted the better part of an hour, that started in the West Covina area, wound its way through South LA on the parts of the 105 freeway, and then back into the West Covina area, where we find ourselves now in this residential neighborhood of Broadmoor Avenue and Workman Avenue, residential neighborhood. The pit maneuver was employed a couple of times, and even in these small kind of residential streets, it did work to the advantage of officers. He lost control of the vehicle and ended up crashing into the back of that car.
Fortunately, without injury, only the expense of that parked car that is now damaged. But yeah, this could have gone a number of different ways, and you had the feeling as he weaved his way around town, Mark, that he would ultimately make his way back here. At a certain point, you saw a lot of random turns in South LA. It didn't seem like he had a clear destination in mind as he made his way out towards Inglewood, and then he just kind of crisscrossed almost every single freeway in the area, and then ultimately traced his steps right back to the city of West Covina, which is always interesting and rarely a coincidence. But he took it off the freeway, which you had the feeling once he did that the pit maneuver would be the first thing that they resort to bring this to an end, and that's exactly what they did. The second he got off was when we saw that pit maneuver where he lost control, and you thought it was going to end like that, and then we saw something that I've never seen, where there were about a half a dozen pit attempts in the middle of a residential neighborhood, traveling at a fairly high rate of speed, especially in a neighborhood like this, where things could have really been horrible had there been the wrong person at the wrong place at the wrong time. Fortunately, things did not go that way, and it looks like nobody has been hurt here. But now it becomes a waiting game, and I think the smart money is going to be, if they do indeed have some less lethal rounds at their disposal down there, or some tear gas or pepper balls, whichever they happen to have, that is the most efficient way to bring this to an end. That is very effective. It is not pleasant, and it is the best way to smoke out a suspect who doesn't want to come out. If he still doesn't come out, I mean, the next step would be breaching the vehicle, and whether they do that or whether they wait for a tactical team, that's the big question.
All right, so looking at these two officers here in the upper right part of our screen, you've got the one kind of, I guess, towards the bottom, has what appears to be that grenade, for lack of a better term, that grenade launching sort of thing. He's not shooting a grenade, of course. It would be a tear gas canister or something like that, a pepper ball, less than lethal. But above, look at the female officer there. What she has, that's an assault rifle, right? It appears to be. And so they are taking this very seriously. They are treating this like it's an armed and dangerous individual behind the wheel there. She's now assuming a different position. And is he now going to move? Looks like he's going to move that. Right.
Back in the vehicle. Peculiar. You mentioned armed and dangerous, which could very well be the case that he does have a weapon. We don't know, but it's something that's been on my mind throughout the course of this pursuit, because this is not a typical way that you would expect to deal with a typical. Oh, they're making room for the Bearcat. They're bringing the Bearcat into the scene here. So an armored vehicle, I think belonging to West Covina, has now entered the frame here, and they are going to replace that SUV on that front lawn of that house along the passenger side. So West Covina does have a number of tools at their disposal within their department, and that's exactly what you're seeing there. That's a West Covina armored vehicle that will take over, and they are very capable at penetrating that vehicle, and they will be able to ultimately bring this to an end. But I have to wonder what else is, what else is going on here? Is it just domestic violence and a rape allegation? Certainly could be, and those are very serious charges. But the tactics that we've seen here indicate to me that there's more, a lot more to this story that we just are not privy to, and what those details are, we'll certainly find out. But you got to wonder what else he's wanted for, what other crimes may have been committed here by the suspect.
Right. Well, they're certainly treating this suspect with a lot of care, a lot of caution, and they have a lot of firepower at their disposal to deal with him. Now you see him. He's got the driver's side window cracked just a little bit, and you saw him gesturing a little bit earlier. He did make an obscene gesture a few minutes ago, which I didn't point out at the time because, I don't know, just didn't. And so he is doing something, either taunting or signaling his pursuers, but we don't know if perhaps there is something else afoot here, which has warranted the use of this Bearcat-like vehicle, this armored vehicle that is now on the lawn of this residential neighborhood here in front of this house in West Covina area. We don't see SWAT officers necessarily. We don't see people in tactical gear yet. That doesn't mean they're not there. I just don't see anybody with that sort of gear on. But this vehicle is now there, and it is armored, and it's lighting this thing up really bright. And you've got...
Yeah, and they do have a number of tools in the back there that could bring this to an end. I don't know exactly which ones they're going to choose to bring out tonight, but these are trained officers, specially trained, a division of the West Covina Police Department, and they're going to start coming up with those plans. I mean, it would be typical to come up with a plan and really wait this out for a certain period of time before you escalate it with additional firepower or less lethal weapons or anything like that. Because the more time that goes by, see, law enforcement always has time on their side. They can wait him out where he is going through a physiological process of cooling down, calming down, and hopefully clearing his head, depending on his mental state. Is he intoxicated? Of course, we don't know that, but his mental state is developing. It's evolving. It's changing as the seconds and the minutes go by. And the more time that goes by, the chances increase highly. I mean, it's an incredible exponential. Those officers, so you know it's anybody's guess as to how they play it out here. A little more predictable, like I say, when we see LAPD in this type of a situation, some of the bigger departments in our metropolitan area. When it comes down to these smaller municipalities, it is a different ball game,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that we are always mindful of.
Yeah, let's not forget, too, he did, about, 10, 15 minutes ago, he did throw something out of the driver's side window. It looked, as you said, like a pipe wrench. It looked big and heavy and metal, and he tossed that out the window, landed about, 15 feet or so in front of the vehicle. There it is, and, it does kind of look like a pipe wrench. It's hard to tell from here. We are, just for those of you who are waiting for the Jimmy Kimmel Live show, it will be on in a little less than a minute. Now, a standoff in a residential neighborhood with a rape suspect who's suspected of domestic violence as well. This is in the community of Broadmoor Avenue and Workman Avenue. If you're in your home, you're advised to stay there. And keep an eye on this thing from the vantage point of ABC7 and Air 7 HD. Anthony Anderson guest hosting Jimmy Kimmel Live.